everybody, it's Dr. Glockenflecken.
And Lady Glockenflecken.
Guess what? We are bringing our live show, Wife and Death, to Lebanon, New Hampshire, September 15th at 7:30 p.m.
That's right. Back to the Upper Valley at the Lebanon Opera House.
So I went to med school at Dartmouth.
Yep, I went to grad school there.
And we wanted to come back and put on a show for the community. We cannot wait. It's going to be a blast. You can find tickets at our website, glockenflecken.com/speaking, or go to LebanonOperaHouse.org. We'll see you in September.
Knock, knock. Hi.
Welcome, everybody, to Knock Knock Hi with the Glockenfleckens. I am Dr. Glockenflecken, also known as Will Flannery.
I'm Lady Glockenflecken, also Kristen Flannery.
We're so happy to have you. We are talking about one of our favorite topics.
Yes.
Cardiac arrest.
That's right.
Hearts misbehaving. I hate it when that happens.
Yeah, it's not ideal.
It's not ideal.
But we have personal experience with it.
Absolutely.
We've heard a lot of stories since our own personal experience with it.
Yeah, and we have a couple stories here today that we're going to share with you guys. We're so really excited to have these two on. We have Kendra Cunningham and Kayla Messana. So they are the hosts of a new podcast called Flatlined and Fine. And their story is
crazy.
Pretty remarkable. So
they're sisters.
They're sisters.
In their 30s.
Absolutely. Kayla had a cardiac arrest in her sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Her story, she goes through it, very similar to ours.
Yep.
And then a few years later,
Kendra also had a cardiac arrest.
Had a cardiac arrest.
Yes.
So so they talk about their experience, their family experience. We swap stories about everything from ICDs and restrictions after you have a cardiac arrest, and how our kids and families dealt with it, and just the whole gamut.
Yeah, so 3 people who had cardiac arrest in their 30s, and all 3 never got an explanation as to why. So it's a crazy episode. And you're not going to want to miss it.
And check out their podcast, also Flatlined and Fine.
Yes.
Over on Instagram. You can find out more information there. But should we just jump right in?
Let's do it.
All right. Here is Kendra Cunningham and Kayla Messana. Hey, Kristen, remember how you love eyelid mites now?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Well, there's a lot of confusion out there. I want to clear something up.
Okay.
All right. People think they can get eyelid mites from dogs and cats.
Can they?
No. These particular Demodex mites are specific to humans.
Okay.
So spread from dogs and cats is not expected. That's a myth.
Can't get them from cuddling our poodle.
No. Demodex mites that cause blepharitis live on humans. Most adults already have them. They just usually don't cause problems. It's when they overgrow that they can lead to itchy, red, irritated eyelids. Those little collarettes.
Mm-hmm. The crusties at the base of the eyelashes. Right. And the good news is there's a prescription eye drop available for Demodex blepharitis.
That is great news. To learn more about eyelid health and Demodex blepharitis, visit miteslovelids.com. Again, that's miteslovelids.com to learn more. This ad is brought to you by Tarsus Pharmaceuticals. Hey, Kristen, it's hot outside.
It is. It's summer.
You know what that means?
What?
T-shirt season.
That's right.
I love a good t-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
You know who makes a good one?
Who?
Cozy Earth.
They do.
They're all-day tees.
Yes.
They're soft, they're comfortable, but they're also cool.
Yeah, and the rib knit pajamas, I really like those because they have like a good weight to them, but they're still like cool and breathable.
And Cozy Earth stands behind everything they make, a lifetime warranty and 30 days of hassle-free returns if anything isn't quite right.
Nothing to lose.
This summer, Cozy Earth's all-day tee and rib knit pajama set are the 2 things I keep reaching for. Made from viscose from bamboo, breathable, soft, and built for the season you're actually living in. Summer lives here, and honestly, so does cooling comfort. Head to CozyEarth.com and use my code KNOCK for an exclusive 20% off. Again, that's code KNOCK for 20% off. And if you see a post-purchase survey, mention that you heard about Cozy Earth right here on Knock Knock High. We are here with Kendra Cunningham and Kayla Messana. Kendra and Kayla, thank you so much for joining us.
We are so excited.
Kristen, you and these two, you guys all connected previously.
Yes, we did. Was it LinkedIn or Instagram? One of the two.
It was Instagram.
Instagram. Okay. Yeah, I saw, the algorithm sends you things, and I saw some of their content, and there was so much in common with our story that I just immediately sent them a DM and said, "Are we best friends?"
Yeah. No, you did. I love that, actually.
we should, let's just jump into that.
Yeah.
Shall we? So Flatlined and Fine is the podcast that you both co-host, which is by the way, fantastic name for a podcast.
Yeah.
That's like the hardest thing to try to come up with is like a good name for your podcast.
Yeah.
And you nailed it, I think. So just jump right into it. Tell us about this story. It was an amazing story.
Crazy story. Yeah, I think maybe Kayla, if you want to kick it off first, just because you started this cardiac arrest journey for us both, and then maybe we can go from there.
Sure. I was 31 years old, healthy as a horse, had no medical problems at all. Had 3 kids at the time, and my husband actually was previously deployed, had just gotten back in late March and early June 3rd, actually coming up on my 4-year liveversary is how I call it.
I like that. That's good.
Yeah, I woke my husband with agonal breathing. And it's, pretty miraculous that he even heard me because he sleeps like a rock. So unfortunately, he woke up to the sound. I was unresponsive, limp. My eyes were open. Obviously, looked dead for the most part. He called 911. He dragged my body to the floor and performed CPR for about 10 minutes until emergency services arrived. I was shocked 2 times by an AED on my bedroom floor. And from there, I continued to go into cardiac arrest about 8 times in the next 24 hours.
Whoa. Oh my gosh.
Unfortunately. Yeah. And so I was transported from a local hospital to a hospital in the city for some more intense care. And of course, my family didn't know if I was going to live or die. I was in pretty rough shape at that point. And Kendra was actually I think she was across the country at that point. She's flying home. Right, Kendra?
Yeah, I can certainly give my take on it, which is actually the co-survivor piece. I love that you guys promote because, frankly, Kayla's cardiac arrest was, in a lot of ways, more traumatic for me. So I really appreciate that connection, but I don't want to take away from Kayla's story.
We'll get there.
Yeah, definitely. Real quick? Was your husband's a service member? Did he know was trained in CPR at all? And I'm sure he was in some respect.
Yes. Yeah. So he was CPR certified at one point in time during his, he did 17 years with the Army. But obviously had never, basically to keep your buddy alive in the combat field if necessary. And so he was instructed by the dispatcher on the phone to start CPR, and he successfully did it, obviously.
Yeah.
He broke my sternum, but if you break a bone, you did it right. So from there, at that second hospital, I was in a coma for a few days at that point. And I woke up having absolutely no idea what happened to me and didn't know what cardiac arrest was. I was just completely flabbergasted at that point.
Did you have memory loss like around that event? Like
yes.
I did?
Yes, for sure. I think Kendra will speak more on that as well. So I was in the hospital for 2 weeks and I was in a coma for that first 4 days. I have no memory. I do remember the day before. I remember taking my kids for a walk. I remember feeding them dinner. I watched an episode of This Is Us, but I don't remember watching it. So I don't remember watching it, which was interesting. And then I went to bed. And then I had something called ICU delirium when I woke up in the ICU, which was insane. I won't go into wild details about it, but it was crazy. But Kendra had a lot of memory loss in her story. Yeah, I remember most of my journey except for the day before, for the most part. And of course, when I was in a coma.
Now, I'm sure you had all the testing in the world, right? To figure out the cause of it. Did they find an underlying reason?
Unfortunately, they have not solidified what is wrong with us. My official diagnosis personally is polymorphic VT.
I've heard
Before it
that
was
term
just
before.
yeah. So
Yeah.
basically like chaotic
Yeah.
beats and rhythms. So, but I wasn't diagnosed with polymorphic VT until after I was shocked by my defibrillator.
Mm.
So basically, they took all that data that they had from my shocks, comparing it to my cardiac arrests, where they came up with that diagnosis. I also have heart failure with improved ejection fraction rate. I did have very low ejection fraction rate, which is like the percentage of blood that pumps through your heart.
Mm-hmm.
I was at 25% at admission, which is very low. And now I'm about 45, 50. So, almost there, just a little lower. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So you had an ICD placed, like
Yeah.
a
That's right.
subcutaneous, and it
That's right.
has gone off a few times, you've mentioned.
Yes, I received 3 separate shocks from my ICD in the last almost 4 years, unfortunately.
Mm. Are you able to anticipate those? Like, because I've talked to other survivors that they kind of feel something. They're not sure what it is, but they're like, oh, I got to lay down because something's
Something's
about to
off.
happen. Something feels off. Do you have anything like that?
So interestingly enough, all of my events happen at night while I'm sleeping.
Oh.
So my initial cardiac arrest was while I was sleeping, and every single one of my ICD shocks happened while I'm sleeping.
Do they wake you up?
They wake me up. So they think I initially pass out from the shock itself, from how
Okay.
painful it is or, powerful it is. And then I feel the after effects of the shock, and that's kind of what wakes me up from it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's awful.
Interesting.
10 out of 10 wouldn't recommend.
So
Yeah.
did you get your defibrillator placed in the hospital like before you went home?
Yeah, I received my ICD the day before I was discharged, and it was terrible surgery. And I think Kendra can relate to this as well. It was awful recovery. And still, it took
Yeah.
me a long time to feel normal after that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so this was, 4 years ago.
2022?
What year are we in? Yeah, 2022.
Yeah, June
Okay.
2022. That's right.
I think he's asking because his was in 2020 and he had to wait like a month,
Yeah,
I think,
they
before
shut
they
down
could
all
put
that
his in.
surgery. So I had to go home with an
Shit.
electric bra. I had a
Yeah.
Oh my
God.
gosh.
I
An
had
external
an
defibrillator.
external wearable defibrillator, and like
Wow.
I'm handed this box, and inside is a picture of this 85-year-old man wearing this like bra looking thing, and I'm like,
Yeah.
as a 34-year-old, right? I'm like, oh
Yeah.
wow, I have the heart of an 85-year-old man. That was like the
That's
thing
kind of the messaging
that was
there.
the message there, and
Yeah.
it's like a kick in the gut, right? That
Yeah.
like, oh man, I how am I going to live like this? And
It's interesting that you said that, because I remember the first couple of appointments I had after my cardiac arrest, I felt so out of place. I'm this 31-year-old
Mhm.
girl. You'd never know something's wrong with me. And all of these people around me are elderly or older and obviously very ill.
yeah,
So that's a good point that you make there.
I think it adds too to the psychological, experience, like in a negative way. It makes it even worse, right? Adding insult to injury, kind of that there's no, brochure for what if you're young, what if you're raising kids and have had this happen. There's no information for people in life stages that are not the, kind of later years, and that just really, we've had that experience with cancer twice, and then the cardiac arrest where it was like that every time. It's like, we do not belong here. We are so like, one of these things is not like the other, one of those experiences. I think it's something that's really easy to fix, but is just overlooked, and it adds to the difficulty of the situation for people.
I agree. Totally. Yeah.
I also wonder too, does it affect the research side of it? Does it affect
Yeah.
the data and the facts around medication? Kayla has been on a lot of medication for years. There's no way that has been tested on 30-year-old women for an
Right.
extended period of time. How
Right.
does that affect the longevity of her life? She's had to go off and on certain medications because other organs have kind of been, negatively affected. And I wonder, yes, like, we don't belong in this world, but also are medical professionals focused on people like us in this world?
Yeah.
Right.
well, Kendra, tell us about your reaction. What was going on in your life whenever you heard about Kayla?
Yeah, that's interesting. So we had just gotten off of our wedding. My husband and we got married in the middle of May. We went on a 2-week honeymoon and we got back, and a couple days later, I got a terrifying call from my brother-in-law. I happened to be away in Texas on a bachelorette party and got this frantic phone call from him. And I mean, my heart just dropped. Like, I can't even describe the phone call, Kristen. I'm sure you had to call and notify people similarly, right? It's
Yeah.
horrible. I
Mhm.
couldn't even understand what was wrong. I was hiding in the bathroom of this hotel room. Thank God my best friend was with me, just like coincidentally, because I was a wreck. He was a wreck on the phone. And he was calling me because he needed me to come over to see the kids, watch the kids, so that he could go be with Kayla. And I was like, I'm in Texas. So I had to call my husband. Again, we had just been married 2 weeks, and
My gosh.
husband duties in full effect. And he was local. You know, he ran there. He was with the kids. I had to book an emergency flight home, hysterically cry next to strangers for hours on a plane, and fly myself to. At that point, she was actually still in New Hampshire before she moved to Boston, and it was just crazy. I mean, totally crazy. Like out of nowhere, my 31-year-old sister is going to die. I mean, that's really what it looked like, truthfully, for a while.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
I have never met your husband, Kayla, obviously, but we are, his experience is almost identical to
Yeah.
mine. So I feel like we're in this like tiny little
Yeah.
crappy club
Yeah.
where, I mean, like co-survivorship and being the family member and a loved one of somebody going through this is a certain experience in and of itself. And then, being the one that wakes up next to the person, agonal breathing, doing the CPR, making the phone calls, doing all the things, worrying about who's going to watch the kids, Um, I feel like I just feel like a real like kinship to him, even though we've never met.
I
Yeah.
know.
I don't think I even know his name, but like, I don't know. I feel just, I don't know. Let him know there's someone else out there who understands exactly what it's like
I'm
because
I'm
it's a
sure
very
he'd
small
appreciate that.
club.
Yeah. I don't think he's ever met anyone else who's been through something similar, except for
Yeah.
Kendra's husband now. But
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I
So let's
know.
get into,
let's get Kendra's. I mean, as if one cardiac arrest story, isn't enough.
yeah.
I mean, it's shocking. No pun intended. To hear, what you're about to tell us, Kendra, and the same, similar thing happened to you. So go ahead.
Yeah, it's truly wild. So Kayla did all the testing, like you mentioned, afterwards to figure out, what is wrong with her. Unfortunately, all of her genetic testing came back totally normal. As a result, I, at the time, got an echo and an EKG. I went to a cardiologist, totally fine. I was supposed to be fine. And we kind of just wrote it off like she was just this one off wacky situation that
Yeah.
none of the rest of us had to worry about. Um, I'll give a little bit more backstory on my health history, even though doctors now obviously suspect that this is genetically linked. I think perhaps, I had this predisposition to cardiac arrest, but I did have other health factors going on. So I was actually pregnant with twins all last year, gave birth early. I had a scheduled C-section at 36 weeks on Halloween. And it was a little bit of a stressful pregnancy. I mean, they were tiny. They had fetal growth restrictions. So I was, being seen by the doctors like 3 times a week. It was a lot, but they had a healthy delivery. They were in the NICU. I had high blood pressure almost immediately afterwards. I did not have it before, interestingly. I didn't have it during my pregnancy at all, but I had really high blood pressure right afterwards. So I was kept for a longer period of time and put on medication. That medication continued until about 2 weeks prior to my cardiac arrest, interestingly. Um, I also, oddly enough, I thought I was having a stroke at one point, but turns out I just had Bell's palsy. I was rushed to the ER, had Bell's palsy 10 days after the twins were born. So just these like wacky things that probably have nothing to do with cardiac arrest. But, I mentioned it in case the word gets out that, hey, one day Bell's palsy causes cardiac
Right.
arrest. Who the heck knows?
They didn't rush you off to the ophthalmologist though, right?
No, but I wish you could fix. I mean, who knows? You could probably fix my problems better than anybody else at this point.
I'm not sure. I mean, maybe you're right. I don't know. But don't give me too much credit. Don't give me too much credit. All right, go ahead.
And then otherwise, my household, we all had the flu. Every one of us had the flu. Just a couple days before my cardiac arrest, and so perhaps all of that worked in tandem. And then I had this predisposition to cardiac arrest. I'm not sure. But similar to Kayla, it was overnight. I was not sleeping because I was feeding my newborn twin in my arm. My husband had one twin, I had the other. We bottle feed. I looked at my husband and I said, I'm going to faint. I'm going to pass out. And within seconds, I went into cardiac arrest. And I don't think he realized it right away. I think he said he was like trying to shake me. I was falling off the bed with the baby in my arms. And so he had to take the baby out of my arms, put the baby on the bed, and kind of quickly realized that I was unresponsive. And so he called 911. He was coached by the operator to do CPR and also did CPR for 10 minutes and thankfully saved my life. Unlike Kayla's husband, he wasn't formally trained in CPR. The most we did was watch a few American Heart Association videos before our first child was born. And thankfully probably picked up a thing or two and was able to put it into practice. But it was crazy. He said like the dead weight that I became was outstanding. So, Kristen, I'm shocked initially that you were even able to do CPR. But when we were talking, you said you actually had to do it on the bed.
Yeah, I had neck surgery a few months before, and I was like pretty fine, but I wasn't confident I could get him off the bed without hurting myself. And then where would we be? So I just had to do it. The dispatcher said, we're just going to do it on the bed. And so that's what we did.
Yeah. Fairly firm
Crazy.
bed. So
It is a firm bed.
It's okay.
Yeah.
So fortunately. But yeah.
I was like jumping on him because I was so worried that I wouldn't be able to do it hard enough,
Amazingly, no broken bones for me.
Wow.
Maybe because of the bed. I don't know. Who knows?
I don't know. I
Yeah.
just got very strong bones. I don't know.
Drink a lot of milk.
No, it's interesting. And then, I think we can obviously determine that it probably wasn't random in Kayla's case, and there is probably some genetic link. And I don't want to joke that my cardiac arrest was less serious, but in a lot of ways it was. I didn't walk away with heart failure. I only went into cardiac arrest one time. Kayla went in, multiple times. Mine only happened 4 months ago. So keep that in mind.
Man.
Yeah, really recent. I have not been shocked yet, knocking on all the wood around me. So we're still learning. I don't have a real diagnosis, idiopathic BF. I mean, basically, we don't know what's wrong with you. But I also have an SICD and just trying to figure out what to do from here. So you asked about memory loss. I remember nothing. My stay in the hospital was 4.5 days, like very brief. And I was loaded up with all the drugs under the sun. And then perhaps my body just didn't have enough time to like process it. Kayla was in a coma, sedated for a long time. So I think that might have helped. I don't know, my theory. But I don't remember like days leading up to my cardiac arrest. And I don't remember being discharged from the hospital, like nothing at all.
I want to take just an amazing story. I've got several follow-up questions.
We have questions.
I want to compare notes. I want to compare notes on with our experience and kind of the recovery and everything. But let's take a quick break. We'll come back and get into it. We are very excited to tell you about a healthcare news podcast that just came out. It's called Medlines.
See what we did there? Medlines, headlines.
That's good. That's good, right? It's a weekly wrap-up of everything in our field, from breakthrough discoveries to research, politics, pop culture.
Yeah, I think the best way to think of it is kind of like NPR's Up First podcast, but for all things healthcare.
And we're excited to be a part of the team behind it, along with our partners at Human Content and our inaugural sponsor, the New England Journal of Medicine.
Yeah, we wanted there to be a podcast out there for busy healthcare professionals to stay informed on the go without taking a big chunk out of your day.
It's the episode's like 15 minutes.
Yeah, or less.
That's like the length of a cataract surgery.
Exactly.
Episodes of Medlines are out now wherever you get your podcasts, with new episodes out every Friday. Check it out. All right, we are back. I've got an SICD question for you, the two of you, because we're SICD buddies.
That's right.
Does it
Scientific or a different one?
Mine is Boston Scientific. That's right.
But he doesn't. You guys can properly shame him for me. He does not keep his little bedside. What is that part of the device?
Yeah,
it's like the data
the
receiver or whatever.
All right.
He doesn't keep it plugged in. He's not been collecting. He's not been sending his data
Listen.
for years, like 2 years.
Listen.
Stop it.
Yes.
Listen.
I'm about to give you another cardiac arrest myself if you don't just plug that in.
I would be admitted if I did that. I would be admitted. My doctors would bring me right to the hospital. They'd be like, absolutely not.
He's like, I can't find it because we moved, right? And then he's
really
like, I don't know where it is. And never like.
I really hope my cardiologist
anything.
is not listening to this.
Oh my! I hope that he is. I do.
I do. The med students all get excited whenever I show up, though.
No, that's
to my
funny.
cardiologist.
Oh yeah, sure.
They're big Glock and Flecken fans.
Yeah,
but
the younger ones.
I take it you've never been shocked if you haven't been sending your data and no one's yelling at you. Okay.
Never been shocked. So that's why two things I wanted to get into. First of all, how do you is yours is like kind of up in your side, like armpit kind of thing? Yeah, right there. Does it bother you at all?
Yeah. I mean, I just got mine in. Like a hot second ago. So mine is very sensitive, really, really difficult to adjust to. But Kayla's been dealing with it for years.
Really? Is it? It's not.
Does it still bother you though? Yeah.
I hate it. And the thing, and maybe it's different for men, but for me personally, like finding a bra that feels comfortable in that spot has been a huge challenge.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. It's literally directly on that spot. So it's, and then sleeping, it was painful for years. And I don't know if it's just a personal, I don't know how your recovery was, but it took me a long time to feel normal after that. And it's awful.
Mine, the biggest issue was just when I'd be like wrestling with my kid and I'd get like a kick to the, I'm like, oh man, is that going to make this thing go off?
Right?
But I want to also talk about this idea of having an idiopathic cardiac arrest, because I'm sure, I asked you, and I'm sure that's a question you get asked a lot, is like, everyone wants to know, like, what happened? Why did this happen? And the more survivors of cardiac arrest I talk to, the more I realize, like, in young adults, like, you often do not get a good explanation. Like, I had genetic testing that
variant of unknown significance.
Yeah, I had a variant of unknown significance. Like, okay, like, what is that? What does that mean? And there can be like a psychological toll, right? That to really not knowing why.
Totally.
Can you speak to that?
Yeah. I mean, I think the number one thing that I just don't feel comfortable settling with is, how does it affect our kids? Yes, what is wrong with me? I'd love to know. But in our case, it's also potentially genetic. I mean, what does that look like for our kids? And unless they diagnose Kayla and or I with something specific, our kids are SOL until something may or may not happen to them.
Yeah.
So I mean, I have a really hard time accepting that. That's part of the reason we started the podcast, to be honest, because it's like, what am I going to do? Sit here and twiddle my thumbs? I don't know. Maybe we'll start this podcast and the word will get out to someone who's heard of something similar, and maybe we'll get somewhere one day. I have no idea.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I was speaking at the Heart Rhythm Society, because I don't know, Glock and Flecken people think I'm all these different specialties, so I get invited to like all these different conferences.
You have like gone through a lot of things. I know you've gone through a lot of things.
He does have a story.
But I did have an electrophysiologist come up and basically said, you should get genetic testing done again now that it's been like 5 years. And I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, we didn't know.
Because like, well, my genetics is my genetics.
Right.
But they're always like discovering new things and new.
Which I just assumed that like since you've had the testing, there's somebody out there who's like checking, but I guess not. I don't know. And like, why would you need tested again? Why can't you just say, hey, compare my results?
I did pay for the deluxe package for a geneticist to like to tape my genetic results next to their computer.
Yeah.
Just be like, hey, just in case, just keep an eye on this. But no, I don't think it's like that.
But it raises an important point though. Yeah, like it puts the onus on the patients to do this and we don't know we're supposed to.
I don't know.
Yeah. I was instructed to get tested every 5 years.
You were, okay.
Of my original cardiac panel. But then I actually just got retested. It's called whole exome genetic testing, basically testing every gene under the sun, any gene, any mutation of a gene, and all of it came back negative as well. So we're kind of in this unfortunate series of events here. Yeah.
Did they tell you to get tested again in another 5 years or?
So I actually have to clarify that because they did say my whole exome, they would keep all of my stuff on file and flag me if something were to come up. So it's an interesting question. Yeah. That's how it should be.
That's what I assumed would happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the kids. Because Kristen can talk about how she handled, the immediate aftermath of my cardiac arrest. If you want to just
so I did CPR on him, and then they took him downstairs to get him in a better location for them to shock him, and I didn't want to watch that, so I went back upstairs to just make sure the kids were hopefully still in their room because this was like 5 a.m. or something at this point.
They were 5 and 8 at the time.
They were 5 and 8, and so I just went back upstairs. Thankfully, the paramedics had shut their door because I had told the 911 dispatcher that I didn't want to scare them, and so that was wonderful. And it was still shut. They were awake in there, it turned out, but they didn't come out, so they didn't have to see anything. But then, of course, they take him to the hospital. I'm making phone calls. I'm, just trying to do all the things that you have to do right after a situation like that. And then it, comes around to 7 a.m. when their little, the little lights that turn green when they are allowed to get out of bed, So I know that's about to go off and they're about to come out. So I went into their room and I was just like, what do you say? What do you say to kids to tell them? I didn't even know what was happening, really, So how do you tell your kids? Anyway, so I had asked one of the paramedics, like, what do I say? And he gave me, this is what I told them, is what came from him. He said, just like, tell them your dad is really sick. He needed some equipment that we don't have here. So, they took him to the hospital and the doctors are taking really good care of him. And, that's why he's not here. You're waking up and he's not here. And that's why. And so I said that to them and they were just like, okay. And then they just like wanted to know, like, what's for breakfast?
Yeah. Right.
And then they've had their own experience over time of like, as they've gotten older, understanding different pieces of it. And, I'm sure that will continue.
What's been your experience?
Well, I can say in my case, so unfortunately, my first 24 hours was rough. They did not truly think I was going to live. So my husband had to make a very hard choice of having the kids come see me. So I was, in a coma and connected to, all the things in a ventilator. And unfortunately, they saw that firsthand. So they know, all of the things. They know that I have a bad heart. That's kind of the general realm that I stay under. And, they know when I get shocked, I'm very open. They know my limitations. They know when I get shocked, we have a chat in the morning about it. It's tough because now they're older. So now they're like, okay, what about me? am I going to
they
have a bad
start
heart? Or,
putting
so
things
it's,
together. Yeah.
How old are
Yeah.
how old are they now?
they are, right now, they're 16, 11, and 6.
Okay.
So my
So you've got
youngest
the
at the
whole
time was 2.
range.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My youngest at the time was 2. He doesn't remember me like that, which is good, but my other 2 do. So
Yeah.
it's unfortunate.
Kayla's husband and myself were, and my mother actually, we were in the room when Kayla's kids saw her. And it was awful. I mean, just awful. And it's so hard to understand as a child. Like you said, what's for breakfast? It's so
Yeah.
true. I think until then, like, it wasn't in their face. And when it was in their face, especially the oldest, I think was 12 or so at the time, at first he was like trying to joke or make light of the situation because it was so terrifying. And I remember I looked at him, and I'm very close to him, and I said, it's okay to be scared and it's okay to cry. And he like lost it. And then I lost it. And it was just terrible. But truthfully, we made that call because we didn't know if she was going to make the transport, the ambulance from the local hospital to the hospital in the city. And, thankfully she did. And the next time they saw her in the hospital, she was awake and joking around and dying to get out of there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
what he was
I
doing.
started posting on social media as soon as I could.
Yeah.
And,
Well, hey, that's worked out for you, I think.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's turned out okay. But has your experience been that they just kind of understand a little bit more over time? Like it's like, we've seen that with our kids. Like it's like it's just taken them sometimes years to like
For things to click
for
in
things
a
to
certain
click,
way.
and then like a year later they just
like
out of the
something
blue
else will click.
ask a question.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like, oh, did that
Yeah.
mean what was that? So it's interesting how it's been like a process of understanding.
And did they have to get tested too?
I was just going to say, now we actually, I took them, I definitely have to say, they didn't find the need right away after my cardiac arrest to get my kids tested. After my sister had her cardiac arrest is kind of when they started to take, this seriously with my children. So I took them to a cardiologist. I took them for EKGs and echoes, and they wore heart monitors for a week. So at that appointment, they were like, even my middle was like, so will I have a bad heart too? And I think, that's kind of when this question started stirring up a little more in relating to them personally rather than just my experience. So it's definitely hard waters to tread. I will say that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the uncertainty, right? Of just and for them to be living with the uncertainty, that is its own experience. There's just so many little different experiences that happen within a family when somebody, has something like this happen. And right now we only talk about the patient, but there's so many other little pieces connected to that they also need support. So yeah, it is super tricky because there's just there's no answers right now. There's no like support system for this, It's yeah, like you said, it's tricky waters.
Now, did your kids have to get genetic testing as well?
They did
They
not do genetic
so here's what
testing.
so they did get the EKGs and the echoes, and the older one chose to wear. They gave them the choice. They didn't feel like it was necessary, but she chose to wear a heart monitor for a week, and all of that was normal. Um, at first, the geneticist that did his testing, I asked, like, can we have our kids tested? And he said no, because it wasn't a HIPAA violation, but it's
Probably
basically, it
insurance.
was like no, it was like, it's not your decision to make, it's theirs, and they can't make it yet at these ages, and so you have to wait until they are, I think it was 15 or 16 before they,
Interesting.
Which I think is nonsense.
That's
Crazy.
something weird.
Personally,
well,
where
because he said it's their genetics, and sometimes people don't want to know things about their genetics. And I'm sure he was being like overly cautious and
Yeah.
whatnot, but that was just sort of like end of the road. But then when we had them tested later, I asked again because this was different people. This was the cardiology office or whatever, and they agreed to give me some tests that I could do at home, like a saliva sample, and I had those tests, and they're just like sitting on a shelf because I have never been able to figure out how to say, "Here, take these," and then the first thing they're going to say is why.
Yeah.
But they've already been tested and told they're fine. So now I'm in
Right.
this and
They're fine.
we don't even know if they have the same variant of unknown significance, okay, then what does that mean
Yeah,
Right.
still?
it's more like what do you
What do you do
what do
with
you even
it?
do with the information? Is it just going to cause a bunch of anxiety
Yeah.
without actually knowing?
Maybe if you get retested and they find something, then we could revisit, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think our hope in the last couple of years, and I've done lots of testing. I got tested for Brugada syndrome. And the hopes the last couple of years is that something would come up that
Yeah.
would
Mhm.
help our kids in the future, help them
Yeah.
maybe get a preventative ICD specifically.
Right.
Right.
So unfortunately,
Do
that
they
hasn't
do
happened
that?
yet. They do.
Is that an option? They do?
Yeah, well, I think
It depends on what it is, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
In our case, no, they would never do
Right.
it because we don't have an
Right.
identifiable gene.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
If one of our genetic tests came back and said you have XYZ problem and it is 1000% genetic, they would test the kids for that gene and then they would put in an ICD for sure.
I see.
But
Yeah.
Yeah,
for
that
now,
makes
no.
sense.
Although I wish it was elective because I would slap one in them right now.
Yeah, I know.
I know.
It's such a scary thing as a parent. Like, it's enough to
Yeah.
go through it yourself and then
Well, in
Yeah.
your situation is obviously different from ours because I mean, two family members, two
Right.
siblings having
Yeah.
a similar thing without an
Yeah.
explanation, certainly, you know, lends more credence to
to the
a
genetic
genetic
side, yeah.
etiology. Um,
Somebody get on that.
I
But with, like
know.
but with our kids and like, I don't want to make all the geneticists mad at me, but like, so it's a let's take another genetic disease, for example, like Huntington's
Mhm.
syndrome. You know, that's where like I can understand that argument because like, if a family member has Huntington's, the kids have a 50% chance of,
Mhm.
having this, deadly disease. And so you wait until they're old enough to comprehend like the
Mhm.
implications of having that testing done. But if it's more of like an unknown and, we're just like wanting to like screen, there's no like, you know, fatal disease thing happening, that we can identify on genetic testing. I don't see the problem with having your kids tested.
I don't know, I'm
But
sure this could be like a classroom debate
I know, yeah,
in
yeah,
some
yeah.
No,
med
I,
school.
I,
Maybe,
I agree with you. I agree totally.
yeah, maybe we should have a genetic ethicist
Ethicist,
on the
yes.
podcast. But anyway, I wanted to ask you one thing. What kind of restrictions did you have right after, you were discharged from the hospital, both of you?
Oh, I think Kendra should take this away because she had small children. She had a lot of restrictions.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I did. I mean, obviously after the surgery, I couldn't lift anything. So I had, 3-month-old twins that I could not pick up or
Oh my
carry
God.
or anything. So that was all sorts of messed up.
Mhm.
My husband was playing caretaker and father and mom, and it was something. We had a lot of help. So thank you to everybody who came out to help us. But that was, my major restriction. I think I I think that this is also where there's a huge difference between Kayla was treated at a very specialized hospital in Boston, and I was treated at more of a local hospital in New Hampshire. And there was a huge difference in guidance and next steps. I was kind of, granted, I didn't have heart failure and I wasn't as serious of a case. But I had very little guidance on what to do. I mean, I wasn't given dietary restrictions. I wasn't given exercise restrictions. I really wasn't given much information when I went in for like my 6-week ICD checkup. The nurse was like, "Okay, everything sounds good. See you in a year." And I'm like, "A year? Oh, what am I going to do with that? Like, what's wrong with me?" And that drove me bonkers. But I think in Kayla's case, she was advised much more seriously on the dietary piece, the workout restriction, things like that.
What were you allowed to drive?
Technically, in New Hampshire, you're not supposed to drive for 6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I was told too. But I was
Yeah.
allowed to do eye surgery.
I said, just stop it.
He
Yeah.
could go back
Isn't
to
that
work,
ridiculous? Like you
but he
can't
couldn't drive there.
Yeah.
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 That's hilarious.
Did you go back? Did you go back to eye surgery that quickly?
Oh yeah,
You did.
I started operating again about a month later. I mean, I felt fine. Like physically I could do it. I could do the surgery. Mentally I was just fine. But yeah, I just had that restriction of no driving. And so my mom like lived with us for 6 months and drove me to work.
She like packed him a lunch, drove him to work,
Yeah.
Oh my
picked him up
gosh.
from work with a snack. Like
That's great.
he's this
It's fantastic.
grown man.
Unfortunately, after your shocks, you're also not supposed to drive for 6 months as well.
Oh no.
Thankfully, my husband looks great in a minivan.
I bet. So yeah, I mean, Kayla, that must be is it the same for you? Same
Yeah.
situation, right? You're basically not driving.
Yeah, it's very frustrating. Honestly,
Yeah.
it's the most getting shocked is like it brings me right back to cardiac arrest. It makes me
Yeah.
frustrated and angry, and it's just this. I'm a very positive person about my experience. I think you should live your life, and that's what I preach to people. And I'm on my second life, and I love my life, but I get frustrated every time I'm shocked. Like, oh, my heart is still sucks, and
Yeah. We're
it's
still doing this.
still doing this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you address a lot of these frustrations and just your story and advocacy in your podcast. So let's talk a little bit about Flatlined and Fine. So, what was the impetus for starting this? Obviously, the cardiac
Sure.
arrest, but what?
But why a podcast?
Yeah,
Yeah, we almost died. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I was hopped up on drugs in the hospital and said, "Oh my God, I messed up too. We need to do a podcast." And I should have figured it was only going to be a matter of time until Kayla was knocking at my door saying, "Hey, remember you said that?" And that's what happened. So
I showed
it kind of
up
picked it
at her door with t-shirts.
with this sweatshirt. She
Yeah.
showed up at our door with this sweatshirt.
really.
And she said, "I know we haven't talked about this since you were in the hospital, which you don't remember, but we're starting this podcast today. Put it on."
Today. Oh wow.
All good creative projects start in a
That's right.
sedation induced haze. That's
That's right, baby.
fantastic. So what do you tell us about it? Like what are you talking about? What are you hoping to accomplish?
So we honestly, the first thing we wanted to address to everyone was that life is short. You live one life. You should live it how you want to. I mean, I have been shouting from the rooftops to people for 4 years now about that. We talk about life after flatlining. We talk about living with heart conditions with children. We talk about CPR awareness, AED awareness, which CPR both saved our lives. So that's a huge component as well. We basically just want to shout it from the rooftops. We're hoping that maybe some similar stories from some other survivors come back to us. And it has been. Yeah, it's been really cool.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, Kristen, I think you mentioned you were in some tight community with Kayla's husband and my husband for saving
Yes.
your husband. But it's interesting. We didn't realize how many crazy situations there are. I mean, we haven't found two sisters that both went into cardiac arrest yet. But we did find some sisters that one had cardiac arrest, one had a stroke, things like that. I mean, we found you in the same manner. So
Right.
we're also in this very tight-knit, unfortunate cardiac community. And it's been really enlightening. And I think, frankly, we've gotten a lot of positive feedback about how much people can relate to our stories, whether they've had cardiac arrest or not, because, a lot of it is trauma, medical situations. They're all similar. I mean, I don't know how you survived cancer and cardiac arrest and all of the above, but I think if you've gone through some sort of medical situation or a loved one has, we try to be really relatable. We also have a very humorous element to us. I think, we've had a lot of comments from folks like, how do you talk so casually about it? But, I think Neil's been processing it for years. And then in my situation, I probably had no time to process it because I have twins and a toddler. But, also because Kayla had already gone through it, in my case, it wasn't unimaginable. It was crazy, but it wasn't unfathomable. And I think that's kind of just allowed us to like launch this platform about like, let's talk about it. Let's get the word out. Let's see if, I don't know, anyone out there can relate, figure out what's wrong with us down the road. Who knows? But it's been a really unique and great experience. I'm a really private person. So for me, it's been a little bit out of my comfort zone. But all good things so far. I can't complain.
That's amazing. Well, I'm so glad you're doing this, and it's Flatlined and Fine. Check it out anywhere you get your podcast, and also on Instagram. You just have an Instagram account, so definitely check that out. I mean, so many people know somebody, if not with a history of cardiac arrest, just a serious medical event.
Yeah.
And there are so many things to take away from recovery from something like this that goes outside of even just cardiac issues. So which I'm sure you touch on a lot of that, just the psychological aspect of like being a patient, right, and everything that comes with it, including we didn't even get to the insurance stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure.
Oh my God.
I'm sure you got stories.
She's
So
like,
many. So
that
many.
exome testing that she's talking about,
Oh,
insurance
God.
is fighting her on that.
Oh, I'm sure.
Mm.
Oh, yeah.
$15,000.
Seriously?
Yeah, seriously. One mouth swab.
One mouth swab, $15,000.
Well, that's a
That's
lot
right.
of nucleotides.
What?
It's
What insurance company, may I ask?
It's Blue Cross Blue Shield Anthem.
Okay.
it's all of them.
I know it's all of them.
It's going to be all
No,
of them.
it's
with,
absurd
especially
though.
with that.
Yeah. They said, "Oh, we had our doctor look over your file." I was like, "Honey, did you?
Yeah, right?
Are you sure? Are you sure you
What
looked at
kind
their
of
file?"
doctor? Was it a dentist? Or...
Yeah, no, it's exactly. No, it's
Oh my,
it's
yeah,
great.
don't even get me started.
It's great that every year you gotta prove that you're. My favorite thing
Yeah.
is every year I have to prove that I still need testosterone replacement, even
Oh
though
my
Right.
God.
I lost both my testicles to cancer. It's
like
like
they got to
Right.
make sure he hasn't regrown one.
yeah, they don't come back. They don't come back, dude. Like, come on,
I can't.
let's do it.
It's the worst.
Anyway.
It's absolutely absurd.
crazy.
I feel you.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh,
That could be a whole
awful.
other, just bitching and
Literally,
complaining
yeah.
about
whole
insurance.
episode,
Could be a
yeah.
whole
Maybe
other-
you should go on their podcast and you guys can do an
Yeah.
insurance
Oh, let's do it.
angle.
If you want to talk about
Literally.
insurance, let's do
Oh
it.
my
Absolutely.
gosh, yes.
Well, thank you both for coming on the podcast, Kendra and Kayla from Flatlined and Fine. What an awesome conversation. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you guys so much.
We should wrap this up so I can go make an appointment with my cardiologist.
Yeah, you should. How was that to hear from
all right,
two
listen.
other survivors?
Well, just in general, or just in terms of like me being shamed to like get my.
Well, let's
Everything
do
under
in
control.
general, and then we'll talk about shaming you.
Oh, I mean, they're all the stories are always so powerful, and so many similarities.
It just makes me think like there's something going on that like just science hasn't quite figured out yet.
Well, I mean, I think it's complex.
Yeah.
And specifically the young people, and I honestly think that sometimes the heart just like does weird things.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's and there honestly just may not be rhyme or reason
Yeah.
to why
Sure.
you just have like a skipped beat at the wrong time, and boom, like your heart's like goes into short circuits, and
Mm-hmm.
there you have it. And it's like, will it ever happen again? Maybe not.
Right.
It's like, why do some people get an ocular migraine once in their
Mhm.
life and it never comes back?
Yeah. Just
There's
chance.
just so many things we just like just don't know, and we may never really have an answer to, but we try
Yeah.
to mitigate the risks of it happening again the best we can.
Does it help you like
going
talking?
to see your cardiologist regularly and getting
Yes.
your ICD all tip-top shape.
Yes. So you're doing that. I'm going to put it on Shanti. Shanti, he's doing that. I'm
Okay,
going to tell Lori.
in my
you're going to
defense-
have
okay,
your
listen,
wife
listen,
and all
listen.
your work wives.
Listen. All right, listen. In my defense, twice I tried to call my cardiology office
Mhm.
and I got the runaround. I could not get a hold. I could not talk to somebody. I was on hold. And I left 2 messages. Never got a phone call back. Mm-hmm. So it's like, does anybody work there? Let's go.
This is frustrating. I am validating your frustration. However, it's a solvable problem.
I know. Call back again.
And go in if you have to. And it's annoying that you have to do that. And you shouldn't have to do that. I understand that, but it's your heart.
All right.
You only have the one.
I'll work on it.
I don't believe you.
There are lots of ways you can reach out to us. You can tell us what you thought of the episode. Email us, knockknockhigh@human-content.com. Visit us and our Human Content Podcast family on Instagram and TikTok over at Human Content Pods. Also, thanks to the great listeners leaving feedback and reviews. If you subscribe and comment on your favorite podcasting app or over on our YouTube channel at @Glockenfleckens, we'll give you a shout out. Like @Rabbits on YouTube said, I'm afraid of eyeballs. The contact conversation is one of the reasons I listen. I'm increasing my distress tolerance around eyeballs. Thanks, Glockenfleckens. I love that. The contact conversation, I'm always getting on people to stop sleeping and abusing your contacts. I will label you a contact lens abuser. You don't want to be a contact lens abuser. Do not abuse contact lenses. These are organs you're dealing with. These are organs. You can imagine you have a contact for your liver. Like, would you take care of that thing? I'd hope so. Take care of the same thing with eyeballs. Because, I mean, granted, some people would put liver above eyeballs, but not me. Some, not me. Just take care of them. That's all.
I personally love that people are using our podcast to increase their distress tolerance.
It's exposure therapy. Exactly.
That's what I always hoped and dreamed when I decided to start a podcast.
So go check out the YouTube channel at Glockenfleckens. We try to read all of those comments. And so if you're wanting to get a hold of us or you have something to say about the podcast or about all things Glockenflecken, you try to reach out to us there. Yeah. We also have Patreon, new and improved, lots of cool perks, bonus episodes where we react to medical shows and movies, hang out with other members of the Knock Knock High community, early after episode access, much more. Patreon.com/Glockenflecken or go to Glockenflecken.com to learn more. Speaking of Patreon community perks, new member shout out to Stephanie R. Stephanie, welcome. We're so glad to have you. Thanks to all the Jonathans, as usual, Lucia C., Edward K., Marion W., Mr. Granddaddy, Caitlin C., Brianna L., MP Cole, Tracy B., Mary H., Keith G., Parker, Muhammad L., David H., Kaylee A., Gabe, Gary Gabe, Eric B., Marlene S., Scott M., Kelsey M., Dr. Hoover, Sean M., Ryan N., Jess K., Hawkeye M.D. Belby Salt, and Shawnee D. A virtual head nod to you all. Patreon roulette time. Random shout out to some of the emergency medicine tier. Shout out to Dan K. for being a patron. And thank you all for listening. We're your hosts, Will and Kristen Flannery, the Glockenfleckens. Our executive producers are Will Flannery, Kristen Flannery, Aaron Corney, Rob Goldman, and Shanti Brooker. Editor and engineer is Jason Portisa. Our music is by Omer Benzvi. To learn about our Knock Knock High's program disclaimer and ethics policy, submission verification, and licensing terms of HIPAA release terms, go to Glockenflecken.com or reach out to us, knockknockhigh@human-content.com with any questions, concerns, or any fun medical puns you might have. Knock Knock High is a Human Content production.
Knock, knock, goodbye.
Thanks for watching the episode. You can find more on that playlist over there. If you prefer to listen or you just had your eyes dilated, you can binge full episodes wherever you get your podcasts. Or join the party over on Patreon, where you get early access episodes, hang out with us, get lots of exclusive bonus content. Help you subscribe, leave a comment below. Let us know what you think.